Great. Yeah, so thanks so much for giving me an evening to come here for this. And this is Nikki from the Women's Center and JC from the Women's Center.
Transition House.
She's with you
Yeah, she's with me.
from the Elk Valley Safe Homes.
Elk Valley
So
Safe
Jen and
JC.
JC.
I know.
Got it now.
You'll get it eventually.
Great. Sweet. So, yeah, I think I've told most of you that the situation in our town is that half a dozen times a year, roughly, these ladies tell me there's a woman that's fleeing a violent situation and they need to get her out of town. They used to have the Greyhound bus as an option, but that's no longer there. So there's a need to get these ladies to a place where they could connect with the wider bus network and get wherever they need to go in Canada or whatever. So that's the service that we're wanting to provide. So Nikki was going to start with giving us a bit of an idea of the situation these ladies are in.
Yeah.
And then me and Jen, I don't know if JC is going to join in as well, we're going to run through this driver handbook just so we know the ins and outs of the program. And then when that's done, basically, we can just talk about the application and that'll be it. So hopefully we'll be done in about an hour and 15, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can take it away.
Cool. So, like Matt said, I'm Nikki. I'm from the Women's Center, which is just like there. And so I work with women on practical things. So we don't house anyone. That's these guys. But we do help with counseling and like setting people up and navigating through the system. So I'm going to give you some like general knowledge about domestic violence, just so you have a bit more of like some tools to use if you are going to be a driver, so that you're not just like, oh, I don't know what to do. Because they can, like, these conversations can be challenging, and we just want to make sure that we're not expecting you to be an expert or a counselor, but just to improve your comfort level in talking about domestic violence. So speaking of that, I'll be using she and him, but like there can be violence in lots of different relationships. And I know that women can perpetrate violence and men can be victims, but for the purposes of what we're doing, we're getting women out of the community and into somewhere safer. I'm gonna use she and him, so that's just a little aside. So domestic violence. I think the simple way to describe it is when somebody uses their power to control somebody in their relationship. So the most obvious ones are physical and sexual violence. I think we all kind of know about that. But there are other forms of violence, and we have a tool that we like to use at the Women's Center called the Power and Control Wheel. And I can just give you guys some little handouts. Oh, the second one.
I think they go. Sorry.
They go together, but I kind of screwed them up just now. Sorry, guys. There should be two. Two things here. Cycle of violence, power control wheel. My photocopier did not.
Separate it for you.
Okay.
Have you got enough? Good, yeah, thank you. Thanks, Lucy.
So, this is a model that we use. So obviously, physical and sexual violence are kind of like on the outside. Those are things you can see, kind of conceptualize. In the very core is power and control. And then there's the ones that are a little less obvious and a little, like a little bit more sneaky, if you will. So we don't have to labor them too much, but I think the biggest one is using emotional abuse. So that's, calling her names, putting her down, making her think she's crazy, humiliating her in front of her family or friends, and then making her feel guilty. They can use isolation, so stopping her from seeing her friends and family, cutting her off from the people who she cares about, who cares about her, not letting her go out and visit with people or do the things she loves. Minimizing, denying, and blaming, so that's saying, oh, it's not that bad, or you're being crazy, or you're overreacting, or it's like whatever, who cares. Using the children, this one makes me really, really sad. They all are horrible, but this one is, I think, especially horrible. So a lot of women can feel like they'll never see their kids again if they leave, or if they're going to threaten to call the ministry, threaten to like legal action. Maybe she can't afford a lawyer and he works at the mine, so he can, or just like threaten their lives. Using male privilege, so that's kind of more like towards the traditional gender roles where she's like a servant, he makes all the rules because he's the man and she doesn't get to have a say. Part of that, I think they can kind of be tied together, is the economic abuse, especially in the valley. So, giving her an allowance, not letting her have any access to funds or the bank accounts, or spending a whole bunch of money without her knowing. And then threats and intimidation, so that's, could be, maybe he never hit her, but he threw a box at her or punched the wall beside her head. Like not real physical violence, but close. And then just being intimidating, being around, being jealous. Also another one on the threat side we find a lot is threatening to hurt himself if she leaves, which can be very manipulative. So, before I go too far, we're going to talk about self-care in a bit, but just, that's big and heavy, and nobody should carry the weight of that alone. So if this is all too much, then you can go and take a break. I'm not going to do what you need to do, is what I'm getting at. So any questions on that? Make sense?
Sorry, I should have introduced you guys. So can we just go around and...
Oh yeah, sure.
And
I'm sorry that none of us were on that. I
I feel like we visited a bit outside.
Yeah.
So I'm Matt. I think everybody knows me, but JC's the newest person I know. So yeah, I'm Matt, and I'm here as one of the pastors here at the church.
I'm Katrina, and I've been involved with the Fernie Women's Regular Center for a long time. So that's why, and I somehow got on the volunteer list.
Because you're very helpful.
All good.
I'm Liz. I'm a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids, homeschool. Just quit teaching dance to do more homeschooling.
I'm Faye, and
You're here.
I'm here, exactly. I'm here.
And I'm Rebecca, and I'm here too.
Awesome. I'm Jen. I said that, you said that already. We're good.
Great.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah, sorry.
And sorry, what are the names of the women who are here?
Shauna Van Wyck and Lori Mitchell and Marin Esch.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so that's what domestic violence is, but on the next handout is what a violent relationship can look like. So this is the cycle of violence. Anybody familiar with that phrase, that term? So we're going to start on the explosion, because that'll be a lot of what we're talking about here on the power and control wheel, like intimidation, yelling, physical or sexual assault, but it can also be like name calling, throwing things, threatening her. That happens, and then often from there we go to the honeymoon stage. So that can be people, then he can switch to being very apologetic, very attentive. It can look very different in every relationship, but there's an apology, being respectful, gifts, promises to change. The counselor at the Women's Center, Kat, showed me this meme that's going on the internet. It's an apology without a change in behavior is just manipulation, and I'm like, that really fits there for the honeymoon stage when we're talking about like a cyclical violent relationship, because then we get to tension, so that the elevation is getting there, we're walking on eggshells, could be insulting her more, accusing her of random things, being emotionally unstable, controlling, and then it all kind of comes to a head again, needing an explosion. So that might only happen once in a relationship, or it could happen over and over and over again with various time differences between the honeymoon and the explosion. But we find that the danger increases when the timings get shorter. So it's less time in between a violent explosion. Pretty straightforward so far? Okay. So I just wanted to kind of go through, I'm sure you're all, if you're here, you're all very empathetic and compassionate people. But, you know, a lot of people might ask themselves, like, why would anyone stay in a violent relationship? And then if you're driving, like, why has it taken so long for her to leave? So, any thoughts? Any, like, myths that you've heard in the past?
Any myths?
Yeah, about why someone would stay? Or
ideas arose.
Mm-hmm.
It'll get better.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I've done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
he's just stressed out. He's just,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he's a good guy. It's just something's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuses.
Mm-hmm. And like also, that can be really dangerous once she leaves as well. Because like if you're living in this kind of cycle, you know when the tension is getting more. You know when things are escalating, and like, you know, maybe he's like hasn't been drinking for a while, and then he starts drinking, and you know that that's the time when things get really elevated. But when you leave, you don't know. You're just kind of out and about, just hoping that things are not going to get escalated. And then she could feel like it's going to happen if she's there or not. She might rely on him financially. And then like where we come in is she might rely on him for transportation, and she might not have any access to transportation. So just, you know, through all of whatever reason it is, just for women to participate in this, I want to hammer home that like to leave an abusive relationship is really brave and really hard. And it might not be the first time she's tried to leave, and it might not be the last time, which can be really hard. We're gonna get into confidentiality in a minute, but just like, it's really hard to leave a violent relationship. I don't know if this is, like I haven't like confirmed this, but the anecdote that we use is that it could take up to 7 like real attempts to leave, to actually leave, to have it like stick. Because, you know,
They've done recent studies,
Mhm.
that number's gone up to 32.
oh
Oh
boy.
my goodness.
Yeah, 32.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that they have a broader scope and understanding of what domestic violence is, they've put it up to 32 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that sucks.
All right.
Yeah. So, what we would like to happen is that you guys drive with compassion and empathy and non-judgmental understanding. And again, I want to hammer home that we're not expecting you to be like masters of counseling or domestic violence counselors. I was just going to give you some little tips on how to be an empathetic listener when, you know, you've got 3 hours in a car. And I'm not saying that it's going to happen all the time, but, you know, I think knowledge is power. So, first of all, I would say not to pry into her experience. If she's in the car with you, part of this program, she's experiencing violence or has experienced violence, so she might want to talk about it, she might not. She might want to sit in total silence, which is uncomfortable, but it's what she needs at the moment. So I know the philosophy that we work at the Women's Center, and I'm sure at the Transition House, she's the expert, and so she's going to know best for her what's going to be important for her at the time. So we've put it into the handbook that there is time for debriefing after a ride, so don't feel like you're alone. It's hard to hold the weight of people, and if you are, if you are finding it challenging, then, you know, there is time and place that we've kind of written in to have you guys be okay, because you guys are our priority. So the kind of 4 things that I think are like the basics of empathetic listening is body language and affirming that you're listening. It's hard to make eye contact when you're driving, and I would say don't. But you know, like the mm-hms, the yeahs, and head nods, and like you can be like positive when you're driving, like yeah, I get that. And then validating feelings. So that's acknowledging and normalizing that they're feelings and letting them know that it's okay to feel that way. So like anybody would feel the same, or I know how hard this is, or that sounds really scary. And then paraphrasing, so just take what they said and just put it into your own words. And then clarifying, so just asking open-ended questions to make sure that you've understood what they've said. So just not assuming that you know exactly what they meant by what they said. Okay, so from that empathy and compassion, it's really important that we provide her with safety. And a big part of safety is confidentiality. So there are specifics, and we're going to ask you to sign a confidentiality agreement if you want to be a driver. But the reality of living in a small town is that you might see or know her abuser. And then again, like I said, with the 32 times, you might see her in town again. And that's really, I mean, it sounds like that's going to be really crappy. You guys would have spent half of your whole day driving her somewhere and then having her come back, but that's kind of just the reality of the situation. But it's important to stress that we have to keep a client's involvement in the program confidential. So that's not just like while you're a member of the program, but also like forever. Mm-hmm. So if you see him in the community, don't engage him or let him know where she is. Or if you see her back in the community, don't assume why she's back and then like follow her lead on how she behaves around you. So because you guys might have like a real great conversation in the car, and you might want to like go up and be like, you're back, are you okay? What's going on? How are things? But follow her leads. If she avoids you in the grocery store, that's your cue, doesn't want to talk to you. Don't take it personally, that's just her experience. But if she does want to talk, it's important to have good boundaries. So if you don't want to talk in the grocery store, you don't have to. But then, you know, that's, you can kind of follow how she's doing. And then the last thing I'm going to mention is self-care. It's so important that you take care of yourself on drives. Holding the weight of someone's story is heavy, and it's tough to hold it alone. So if you need to talk and debrief after you drop her off, you can call Matt, right? We said that? Yep. Or, yeah, or the same
I'm not sure of the first one you're going to want to talk about.
Yeah, but you can call me as well. We do have, I'm a kind of brief counselor. We have full counseling if anything you hear is triggering to something that has maybe happened in your life. We have like in-depth counselors, but these girls are available 24/7. So we're going to give you their phone number as well. But it's important to know what's best for you. I wouldn't drive just like straight home. At least get out of the car, stretch your legs, take deep breaths, go shopping, get a bite to eat. Every self-care looks different for everyone, but just maybe have a plan before you go and just be like, I'm going to make sure that I go to IKEA if I have to go. Which can be even more stressful, so maybe it's not IKEA, maybe it's...
When you forget about everything.
We actually had that in writing for husbands.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to.
They spend $200.
It's part of it. And I signed up for.
Self-care is really important. The lady at the Women's Center said it was important.
A quick question on
Yeah.
that. If you have a relationship with a counselor in your life already, is
Yeah.
it okay to go to that person, or do you want it to stay in the program or
So,
with the church?
with confidentiality, I think it would be okay for you to say, I drove someone and it was triggering.
Okay.
Only about you though, and how it made you feel. No, you can't share the story or your person. But I get that you'd have your own counseling then. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that's me. That's domestic violence. Yay. But thank you for being here and for just even being open to this. You have no idea how devastating it was to hear that the Greyhound wasn't going to happen anymore because of how convenient and safe the Greyhound was for a lot of people. Like, and it wasn't, like, the Greyhound was just like, you know, oh, I'm just, you know, going on the Greyhound. It wasn't a big thing. And now for people to be able, I feel like a lot of people are not from Fernie, right? So if you're going through something like this and you want to get home safe, it's like going home. So that's, I feel like a lot of people, that's where they're headed to, is home, which can be really helpful and nice for people after they've been through a trauma. Yeah, so thank you very much.
I just wanted to touch a little bit on the self-care piece. For me, my self-care looks like, even if I've committed to something, if my mental state is not there and I cannot handle it, I have to pull out. I can't. So my self-care isn't only afterwards, it's beforehand as well. And so, you know, if you're feeling that you can't do it, just check in with Matt and we can make other arrangements, because we want you to be in a place in your mental state as well that you feel like you can handle it, because it can be heavy. And a lot of these times these women just sit there and they talk about the dog they had, or they talk about recipes, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily, it's not saying by any means that it's going to be that way, but just to be mentally prepared that it could be. Yeah. Yeah, thanks Nikki.
Yeah, that was great.
Cool. Well done.
So we were gonna go through the driver handbook. Maybe before we do that, because it's like a whole bunch of like little details and policies and blah, blah, blah. It's a little bit cold hard. Like we did take another volunteer driver program that was used for seniors and we adapted it to this. So we took some of their policies and just rewrote them according to our program. So when we go through it, it's a little bit like, it can seem like it's gonna police you or something like that. That's not the heart of it. We just wanna make sure we do it well and professional and tight, and so it's safe for everybody. So, but maybe right before we go through that, maybe Jen, if you're willing just to speak to just roughly how it's gonna work as far as the woman in the situation calling you guys, how she's gonna get in touch with us, and then just basically what we're doing.
Sure. So a recommendation or a referral, I guess, can come through anybody. If somebody comes to Matt, Matt will come to me to do the referral, and I'll sit with her and I'll go over the client handbook, and the driver handbook's your piece. I'll go over the client handbook with her, tell her what her responsibilities are, set everything up. Same with Nikki. Nikki will send them to us. And the reason we're choosing us is because we have a phone on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're open all the time. And so it just made sense, and we have confidential place, and we're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to meet with anybody. And so we will go over the client handbook with them. They will sign it. We will set it up. It's not going to be like in 3 hours we're leaving town. We're going to be working with them, to set a date and set a time and have everything in place. And then I will pass the information on to Matt, and then Matt will arrange the driver piece of it. Is that about right?
That's great.
Did I get it right?
Yeah, that was perfect, yeah. And so then we would work with whatever availability you guys had. As far I would call around and figure out who had the free time. We would know how far Lady to go. I think we said the maximum would be to Calgary or Golden.
Yeah.
Calgary, Golden, or Trail? I think if...
It was like 300 kilometers or something, what we said.
300 kilometers out.
You're
So
right.
it would happen like 1 day of driving, like there and back, daytime driving, and it won't be like in the middle of night.
Right.
We gotta go now.
Yeah.
Like that's why Safe Homes, like she'll have a safe place to stay so that we can figure out a way to get her where she needs to go. So it's not gonna be an ambulance ride, right? It's like, and we're also like not gonna drive not making you drive in like a snowstorm or anything like we're not gonna do that.
Yeah, we'll definitely sort it out for sure.
Cool.
I think that was it. Is that it for that?
Yeah, that's great. So
You want
we
me
can
to
go
move
through the details of that.
Sure.
Handbook. Do you want to lead us through that? Or?
Well, you were doing 1 and 2.
That's what I was getting. I couldn't remember which parts I was going to do.
I got
1 and 2. 1 and 2. I got it.
I've been told I'm doing 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You knew 1 and 2, Matt.
I got 1 and 2 covered.
First page.
And I was reading through. There's a couple typos, but so bear with us, and then we change it. Make it better later. Okay, so I think the first part's all intro remarks. We've already gone through that. We can go to page 4. Program administration. Mountainside Volunteer Driver Program. The Mountainside Volunteer Driver Program, henceforth MVVP, or is administered by the Mountainside Community Church by the Fernie Women's Resource Center and Elk Valley Safe Homes. The Mountainside Volunteer Driver Program is responsible for volunteer and client screening, volunteer recruitment and appreciation, ride booking, record keeping, along with program advertising and promotion. For any questions, you can call us. Page or policies. It's the part that might seem a little policing. Dress code: drivers are expected to dress appropriately when driving for MVVP. You're acting as an ambassador for the program. We would like you to appear professional. Don't be dirty. Volunteers.
Soil.
This is rough, eh?
This is the seniors.
Yeah, that's right. Upon acceptance as a volunteer in the program, volunteer activities will be overseen by the coordinator, which is me at this point. The coordinator will randomly follow up with clients after trips and address any concerns present, or the VDP will randomly follow up with clients. A volunteer's first ride will always be followed with a phone call to check in and see how it went. Volunteer reviews. Volunteers will be reviewed biannually based on the date they were accepted by staff as a volunteer. This will involve volunteer interview, either in person or by phone. Staff will contact drivers directly to arrange for their review. At that time, they'll discuss the feedback the volunteers received. So it's just to check in to see how things are going. Like, and if there's some concern or something like that, then we can address it in this review. Volunteers are required to provide an updated driver's abstract and police check every 3 years. The cost of this will be reimbursed by the program coordinator. So I don't think there's any cost for the police check. And the driver's abstract, have you already done that? It was free? Okay.
Yeah, I got
cool.
it through the Rocky Mountain International Student Program, but we have to do it anyway. So
Okay.
I don't know if they covered it or.
Right.
It's free on ICBC
I think it
as
is.
well.
I got mine
It's-
for free,
Okay.
they just printed it out.
Oh,
Great,
okay.
great.
There you go.
Great. Records, we'll keep the records here. Basically, we'll have a file where we keep all that information private and secure.
If we got one of those for Shiloh last year, probably good.
Yeah, yeah, as long as it's a
Unless it
volunteer.
disappeared.
Yeah, that's right. We can go and check and make sure it's still working.
Okay.
Yeah. Dismissal, yeah, it's like if there's some major issue, I mean, we'll get into, there's gonna be a grievance thing here. If there's something happened badly, then heaven forbid you get fired from this work.
Like,
Fire volunteer.
Yeah, your salary will be taken away. So that was it, you were gonna do the rest, is that right? The one screw up, I'll just say with this expense recovery fee, because it says there's an appendix with expense recovery details, and there is no appendix in here. But basically, we're giving 50 cents a kilometer, so $50 for every 100 kilometers. So both ways, and we're gonna give that in gas cards. So, yeah, your gas will be covered, and that should be and then some. That should cover some of the maintenance costs of making that trip. Take it.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, so trip policies, expense recovery fee, again, the gas cards, as in towards the end on page 14, I think it is 7.0, is just talking about that, about the expense recovery fee, and gas cards will be arranged for you. And yeah, we want to make sure that's adequate. So we will check in to make sure if gas prices, go up to $2 a gallon or a liter, whatever we call it here, then we will, reevaluate the amount and make sure that you're being fairly covered. Trip purpose, the purpose of the volunteer program is to assist women fleeing violence. Rides are from point A to point B with no extra stops, except for food, rest, and refueling as necessary. Any additional stops are not covered by the program's insurance policy and will not be made. Just a quick sidebar, it's lovely and amazing, and these women are beautiful creatures, and they want to make sure that their needs are being met. and accidentally one of our drivers who was being kind and doing her job got taken around, we think doing a drug run, sadly, just because she's like, oh, I gotta go over here and pick up a check, and then I gotta go over here and I gotta drop this bag off, and then I gotta go over here and go to my boyfriend's house and pick up my mail, and then in the middle of it she was like, I think something's up here. And so as much as we want to be, assisting them and helping them sometimes, so that's why we've made it very clear we're going A to B. We will discuss that with the clients as well. There's no stopping in between. And if it becomes an issue or anything happens, again, our phone is on. You're more than happy to call us. Pickup times when coordinated a ride in Mountainside. Coordinator will provide both drivers and passengers with a pickup time and location. Drivers are requested to arrive at the pickup time location promptly. There's a criterion for acceptance of a client that they are able to get in and out of the vehicle without assistance. If a passenger requests assistance transferring in and out of the vehicle, drivers assist at their own risk. This practice is neither endorsed nor recommended. If a driver feels a client is not capable of completing this transfer without assistance and you're not comfortable with it, please let Matt know immediately. Sometimes we can arrange a ride and in the meantime they might fall and break their leg and then you might not have room in your vehicle or you may not be comfortable moving around. Things happen, so we'll keep everybody as up to date as possible. Wheelchairs, walkers, and strollers, although passengers must have the ability to transfer themselves into vehicles without assistance. Occasionally they may need a wheelchair, walker, or stroller. For assistance if the driver is unable to accommodate a folding wheelchair, walker, or stroller in their vehicle, or you do not feel comfortable at these times, please let Matt know and we'll make sure that we can make the right arrangements. Entering a passenger's home, we strongly, strongly encourage that you never ever enter a passenger's home. If there's no answer at the door upon arrival of the passenger's home, and if the client isn't at the pickup location, drivers must notify the Mountainside BDP coordinator immediately. Probably to eliminate a lot of this, we'll more than likely just meet at the transition house is my guess. More than likely they'll be there, and then JC and I can also assist them with getting stuff out of their house, whatever they need, and so it'll be nice and smooth. There'll probably be the odd time that you'll have to pick them up at their house, but you'll be in touch with us or with Matt. And if you suspect that it's an emergency situation at any time during the ride or any time, please call 911. Escorting passengers. Drivers are not required to escort the passengers directly into their arrival location. If a driver wishes to they may do so at their own risk. If a driver encounters an emergency situation at any time during the trip, it is recommended that they contact local police, EMS, or call 911, whatever is deemed appropriate. Volunteers are encouraged to get training in administering first aid. These courses are available through your local continuing education council. If I'm going too fast or there's any questions, please stop me. Please ask. Additional stops. Rides will be from point A to B, as we said. No extra stops except for food. Smoking. For health, safety, and comfort of all vehicle occupants, smoking while driving with the vehicles, while the person's in the vehicle is not permitted. I know for me, I'm severely allergic to cigarette smoke, even if I smell it on a person, and I can't let somebody in my car if they've been smoking. So if you feel that could be an issue for you, please let us know ahead of time. We'll make sure that she gets all her smoking out before, and we'll get her to wash her hands and blow dry her clothes or whatever we have to do, but just let us know ahead of time. If you're not bothered by it, then that's fine. Driving practices. I love this. Drivers are expected to drive in a defensive and courteous manner. Defensive and courteous. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around, what does that look like? Defensive and courteous. For safety reasons, recommended that all loose items in the vehicle are securely stored in the event of an accident. Loose objects may be projected in the vehicle, creating hazard for injury. BDP accepts no responsibility for any tickets incurred for parking or traffic violations while completing a volunteer driving trip. Weather, again, like Nikki said, if the weather's bad, cancel. We're not going to go through with it. And seatbelts, in the interest of safety and compliance with the law, seatbelts must be worn by both passengers and drivers at all times. Some women will have kids with them, some won't. So if they are traveling with kids, we can provide car seats, correct?
Well, the client is going to provide their own car seats, so you're not expected to have car seats, you're not expected to be comfortable with driving children. If you don't want to, let us know and we'll, find somebody who is. But yeah, the client will provide the car seats. There's funds from the Women's Center to, if they don't have them, to provide them.
Yeah. Confidentiality, so we talked about this, Nikki touched base on it, I'm gonna go through this and kind of break it down. Trust with you, confidentiality. Trust with you is,
This is kind of worded really weird, so if you struggle with it, it's not your fault. It's like, it's gotta be
I
reworded.
feel like when I read the one from the original, it didn't seem that complicated.
Yeah, the program guidelines is good. This one is like, somebody did
Building
a
trust
Picasso on it.
Building trust with the client is the Mountainside BDP driver's top priority. It is the basis of a positive relationship. The Mountainside volunteer driver will put the client's privacy first and strive to maintain confidentiality. Any information shared with the driver during a session is considered to be a private matter. This means that the driver will only share necessary information with the Mountainside VDP coordinator and Elk Valley Safe Homes, with the following exceptions. So if a client reveals something that is potentially harmful to themselves, like thought of suicide, you'll report that. We're gonna do extensive screening. If you are talking and something triggers in them and you find that the situation's escalating, you're more than welcome to call us or call 911 if you think that they're gonna be in harm. And if you drop them off and you feel like they're just, a shaky mess and they're not doing well and they're talking about, ending things, or they're making comments that make you feel uncomfortable, call 911 and just say, what's the word we use? Wellness check. We'll call it a wellness check. Sorry. It's late in my brain. Call it a wellness check, and you're more than happy. It's really important to do that, and also, feel free to call Jason and I and just go over it with us. Like, am I overthinking this? Am I reading into something? What do you think this is? And I mean, we're going to screen them pretty well too, so it's not we're not putting somebody in your car who's feeling this way. If the client lets the driver know that they will potentially harm others, if the client lets the driver know that they or someone they know is harming their child or another child, this would also include neglect, not caring for basic needs. So we have a due diligence as adults. Anybody over the age of 19 has due diligence to report when anybody over the age of 19 is in harm. And so often with women, and so this is how we work with women and we deal with women, is a woman could come to us and tell us that there's severe violence going on. I don't get to call the police. I get to work with her until she wants to call the police. If she tells me that he's hurting the child and the dog and all these other things, but the child especially, I get to call the police. She doesn't get to tell me yes or no. And so that's where this piece comes in regards to our due diligence, in regards to keeping children safe. The Mountainside Volunteer Driving Program driver will do their very best to maintain the dignity and confidentiality of the client, and if the driver needs to inform others about what has been discussed, they will try and speak to the client first. If the driver is unaware about the best way to help the client with something, they may talk to the Mountainside VDP coordinator to gather thoughts, suggestions regarding client circumstances. The driver will maintain the client's confidentiality by providing only relevant information.
You skipped over the fourth.
Oh, I may have, I'm reading from a different.
And I'm just trying to catch on to it
Yes.
here.
Which one did I miss?
The fourth one in down.
If you, coordinator, or Elk Valley Safe Homes receive notice from the court system that requires them to hand over your file or records.
We're not going to keep files or records, so I think I edited it in the bigger one, and then
Okay,
it didn't make the.
so just gotta strike that.
So just take the fourth one out?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, now I gotta catch up. Where were you?
So we're good? That's not, okay. Okay, which one, I should read from this one.
I think it's just the last one in order to ensure.
In order to, oh, there's different,
Oh, we did make it different.
yeah.
No, it's, okay.
If you're unsure about the best way, oh yeah, okay, so talk to Matt, you can talk to us. In order to ensure your privacy, you will not acknowledge the client if you see them in a community unless the client acknowledges you first, as Nikki said. This is so they will have the power to decide if they wish for others to know to know that they are working with the Mountainside Volunteer Driver Program. Oh, start at the bottom on that one. Grievances. So, grievance policy by a driver. If a driver has any problems during the course of their actually read what you guys have so that even if a driver has any problems during the course of their volunteer assignment, they are asked to contact the Mountainside VBD coordinator immediately after transport with details of the incident. This is also strongly encouraged if you don't have a grievance and you just want to talk about it and how it went and unload it. The Mountainside coordinator will work with the driver and any passengers or volunteers involved in the incident to ensure a satisfactory resolution. If a problem arises, do not hesitate to contact the RCMP to assist and or head to a public place. About a driver. If a driver receives a grievance against them, they will be contacted by the Mountainside VDB coordinator and the grievance will be discussed. Drivers who receive grievances may be dismissed from the program at any time. Dismissal is solely at the discretion of the Mountainside coordinator, depending on the severity and frequency of those grievances. Record. That doesn't mean that you guys went to IKEA 100 times a week. A record will be placed in the driver's file. And feedback will be discussed at volunteers' annual review. Driver release. So when you have read this and you agree, so I wrote something here, I just said, it is mandatory that if after this training and introduction to the program, you are still interested in volunteering for this program, you will need to sign this page and hand it off to Matt, please. And then expense recovery fees, I think that's it.
No, this is the volunteer verification letter, and that's, you can take it to the RCMP.
Oh,
Did you
yeah.
get it? Yeah.
Yeah, this is volunteer verification on page 13.
If you need to get your vulnerable police record done again, or need to get it updated, you can take this and then they won't charge you for it. Because you're saying you're doing it to volunteer and not just for fun or employment. Just want to check, see what people do.
Just need to take out the driver release for you then?
Yeah, the insurance, so we do have $10 million liability with the church. So I think how it works is if you got in an accident, I think it's still your insurance for the initial part. If you're getting sued for more than whatever you have on yours, then you're covered by the church's insurance up to $10 million.
But yeah, it would be encouraged if you only have like the basic liability to increase it to like 1 or 2 million. I don't think it's that much of an extra charge to increase your liability. It's probably a good idea, just in general anyway, when you're on the road.
I have 2 quick questions.
Yeah.
In the event that we are transporting the kids with them as well, is that something that you guys will have cleared and we're not gonna be having somebody chasing us down or being drawn into court over a custody battle? Or
Oh, yeah.
how is it, so that's all gonna be taken care of, we're not, okay.
Yeah. We're at the Underground Railroad. And
I just want to make sure that that's all checked into, because that's not
That's part of our
something-
responsibility with working with the client, is making sure that it's all legit. We cannot aid and abide, we're not helping people to break the law, and so we're not gonna ask you to do that either.
And you said stopping for food and stuff, is it okay if we like grab them a coffee, grab them lunch if it's lunchtime, or is that something that you don't want us doing?
We're going
There's no
to provide
interchange?
them with cards and stuff, like Tim Hortons cards and things like that.
Okay.
I know that we're not gonna leave them stranded. I
Yeah.
feel like the rest of it is your discretion, but I don't know that we haven't talked about that.
Well, it's just, whatever is gonna work best for you, just like not personal stops between point A
Okay,
and
no,
point
but
B.
if I'm stopping for a coffee, it's okay that I grab her a coffee too
Yeah.
and.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
But some programs don't want you to have any food interaction from your.
Oh,
yeah.
So I just
Food's
wanna
where
make
it
sure.
happens.
Yeah.
That's what I've always taken issue with, but
Yeah.
it's, new task. Okay, I think that was it.
But if there's anything that comes up or you're not comfortable I'd be like, cool, and then it comes time to do it, and you're like, I don't want to do it anymore. No, we're not gonna hold you to it, and we're not gonna force you to do anything you don't want to do. So it goes against the ethos of our whole deal here.
Intimidation.
Yeah, women's center is real controlling.
Yeah, so now you just need to fill out the application. Was this previous, and then there's this list of documents that we would need to have on file. If you're cool with continuing, then it's on the back of that application, there's a bunch of things. The one thing that makes you wonder is at the bottom it says discuss proselytization policy. So when we talked about it, it's like basically we're not going to aggressively try to convert this woman, especially if she's uncomfortable talking about God or something like that. We're not going to force a religious talk on her. If these ladies want to talk about God, great, we can talk to them respectfully. We're just trying to show respect and not be, attacking religiously or something like that.
Right.
Do you want me to write Fernie here or where I actually live?
That's the release one?
City?
Yeah, forward's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's in the policies, the big thing. But the other thing is as well, if you're part of the driver program and you don't want to drive by yourself, another person who's part of the driver program can drive with you.
No, we can all go to IKEA.
There's gotta be room for her though. You gotta ditch your bags, you can't fit anymore. Because it's also not super comfortable to be in a car by yourself with one other person for a long time. So we get it.
Mm-hmm. But also being mindful to not leave her excluded
Right.
from your IKEA conversation.
So if you want like one of your husbands or something to come, they could come as long as they also went through this.
Right.
Then they could come with, and we want to make sure that there's always a woman present, that it wasn't just a man who was driving women, of course. Yeah.
We might get the odd question too about people traveling with pets. We might, and so we can bridge that and talk about that when it comes up. Often women find it very hard to leave their home if there's pets. So that can sometimes come up as a border boundary. Thanks as well.
And I think it's in the application whether or not
It
to
is,
say
yeah.
if you're comfortable with that or not. And again, it's not to say that you have to be, just like
No,
we'll
yeah.
match the right person with the right driver. If that's the case.
What it was great on the year of our car.
That's why this is there.
Oh my God. Look at what year, I think.
Right. It's not a huge deal. Yeah, it's like
Somewhere in the 2000s.
yeah.
Be a truck or a van.
Yeah, the main thing is that it works, that it's safe.
It's not like I'm married.
Yeah. How many times did you?
52.
Sorry. How many times did you say usually? 7?
Like 6 a year, I'd say.
You're not.
That's enough. Yeah.
It's not nothing, but it's not going to be every weekend of your life.
It was a big distress to those of us who do help women leave when Greyhound pulled out.
I bet.
Huge distress. So very grateful for this opportunity, and thank you all so much for volunteering your time to be able to be a part of this. It's great.
Yeah.
What class is our driver license? 5 at
5, typically.
5.
So you can drive a passenger van or...
You have a bus. You drove here legally. You're good.